Hey everybody. So right now I'm going to share with you the story of Wendell Scott, the first African American who was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. But while you're listening, I want you to pay attention for three things. Number one, how did people try to tell him that he wasn't good enough, that he couldn't cut it? Number two, how did people try to tell him that he didn't belong? And number three, what did he do about it? All right, here you go.
He started racing in 1952, and, it was like Picasso, like a great artist doing his work. And he was in that car, and he was doing his work. But, he couldn't get the support where other drivers that we were competing against had major sponsorship. He did everything that he did out of his own pocket. And as children, we didn't have that leisure time. We couldn't go to the playground. He said to us, "I need you at the garage." I can remember him getting injured, and he'd just take axle grease and put it in the cut and keep working. But he wasn't allowed to race at certain speedways. He had death threats not to come to Atlanta. And Daddy said, "Look, if I leave in a pine box, that's what I got to do, but I'm going to race." I can remember him racing in Jacksonville, and he beat them all. But they wouldn't drop the checkered flag. And then when they did drop the checkered flag, they had my father in third place. One of the main reasons they gave was there was a white beauty queen, and they always kissed the driver. He finally got the money. But, of course, the trophy was gone, the fans were gone, the beauty queens were gone.
Did he ever consider not racing anymore?
Never. That was one of my daddy's saying, when it's too tough for everybody else, it's just right for me. Like I can remember one time when we were racing Atlanta 500, and he was sick. He needed an operation. And I said, "Daddy, we don't have to race today." He whispered to me and said, "Lift my legs up," and put me in the car. He drove 500 miles that day. He always felt like someday he's going to get his big break. But for 20 years, nobody mentioned Wendell Scott. But he didn't let it drive him crazy. I think that's what made him so great. He chose to be a race car driver, and he was going to race until he couldn't race no more.
All right, you're up. In your classes, I'd like you to discuss these three questions. Number one, how did people try to tell Wendell Scott that he wasn't good enough? Number two, how did people try to tell him that he didn't belong? But especially number three, what did he do about it? Share your answers to these questions with somebody else in your class, and then actively listen to somebody else when it's their turn to share. I wish racism was a thing of the past, of the 1950s and 60s. But guess what? It's still with us. And if we're going to figure out how we're going to chart our course, we could do a lot worse than following the example of people like Wendell Scott. All right, you take care.